What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and I'm here with
Gershwan.
And today we're back to answer more questions from you guys in another installment of For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, just comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. That's what Dragon Punch 903903 did. He asks, if they remove one feature from the game, what would you want it to be?
That's interesting because the game of 40K is an ever-evolving monster. Like, if you look back all the way to, like, Rogue Trader to 9th edition, a lot has changed. Some might say for the better, but some might say for the worst.
Yep, depending on your army.
That's true, because it's always a game of playing the meta.
Right.
Because you can have the best army one edition, and it's utter crap the next.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that have been removed, such as like templates. Even like, was morale a thing back in the day?
Yeah, I think morale has always been a thing, but the templates is the big one.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we were to remove one thing to make the game better in 9th edition, I think it would be some of the secondary objectives.
Okay.
Because I feel like primaries are obviously important, and secondaries kind of give the game more flavor. But if you're playing certain armies, you're never going to want to choose certain secondary objectives. Or, for example, if you're playing a heavy Psyker army, there are secondaries that literally F you over.
That is true. So, like, I play Speed Freaks, and Speed Freaks are heavy vehicles. So whenever we would play back before we started doing the Crusade, because we've only been playing Crusade now, but before Crusade, they would gain points from just killing a truck.
Yeah.
And a truck is so easy to kill. So it was very frustrating to play a Speed Freak army, even though I guess it kind of balanced it out, though, because I was a big-time Alpha Striker. So, like, I would wreck if I get the first turn. Or, yeah, I do. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Especially if you're playing like a heavy Psyker army, there are things that like say, oh, every time you kill a Psyker unit, you gain more points or something like that.
Yeah, and then you flip it for the Psyker, because like the Psyker can do his little action, and then that gives you like what, 5 points or 10 points.
Right, but then you're taking away that entire unit from doing its thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of balanced, but at the same time, like if you're playing a Psyker army with a lot of like monsters, creatures, or vehicles, it's just you're playing an uphill battle.
Yeah, you have a huge disadvantage. Yeah.
But also, this edition is all about taking objectives. And if you're playing a very elite army, it may be difficult to take all the objectives and still have enough board presence and like synergy in your list to come out on top.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is about like this edition, but it seems like models die quicker, easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, just because you have 4 wounds, that don't mean shit. Like, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
For me, the thing that I would remove is definitely the morale phase. I think it's pointless. Half the time we forget about it.
Yeah, because usually there's like a rule that says, hey, you ignore morale, or you automatically pass it.
Yep. Or like you roll because if you roll a 6, right, or roll a 1, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it bugs me that like, like either kill them outright or don't do the whole like, oh no, you only take 1, you have to multiply this and then subtract this. It's not that complicated, but like, it's annoying.
That's true, because I agree. Every time we play 40K, morale phase is something that's easily missed or like ignored.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a universe where everything's supposed to be grim dark. I get it. Like, if you're playing a certain army, you're going to want to run away. Yeah. But usually if you're in a war, it's like, where do you run away to?
Yeah, and if you're to the Death Corps of Krieg, you know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
you're supposed to die. Away. Yeah. And also, like, it favors Space Marines, too, because they show no fear. Right. That thing bugs me.
Another thing, too, I'll just add that as a little caveat, is Space Marines already get too much. Don't give them doctrines. Like,
oh, yeah.
They're already good, and it's like, oh, but on this phase, you get this. This turn, you get that. It's like, bro, like, stop it. They're already good. They don't need this.
That has been the struggle with, I think, anybody that's involved with 40K. Whenever Space Marines come up, you know they're going to get attention. And it's just, I don't know if it's because I think it's a vicious cycle of, like, the fans push the game to, like, favor the Space Marines, and the Space Marines are favored because the fans are pushing it. So it's just, like, a vicious cycle of, like, oh, shit. And we notice that on the channel. If we post a Space Marine video, it's going to get views.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's a vicious cycle, but it's a cycle that we all feed into.
We do, yeah.
Because like, you're right. It's like Space Marines are good because people want them to be good. So people play them because they're good, which then GW puts more stuff so that more people can play them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they should do what they did to the Grey Knights, because there was a point where the Grey Knights were top tier, and like if you didn't play Grey Knights, or if you played against Grey Knights, you were gonna lose.
Yeah.
And now you play Grey Knights, and like you need to have a set strategy, which I think GW needs to be careful with that, just because you don't want Warhammer to turn into, or 40K to turn into like Magic the Gathering, where like there are 4 decks that everybody plays, or a variant of those 4 decks. Yeah. But yeah.
This next question is by Evangelium. Sanguinius has wings and foresight because he was blessed by Zeech. What do you think about this? Nah.
If anything, he's perfection.
Yeah. The Emperor blessed him, and because the gods... Well, I guess you could say in a way it might be Zeech, but the Chaos Gods took the Emperors when they were still in the pods and flung them across space. I guess technically it could be that Zeech specifically took Sanguinius and put him on that planet, which then allowed him to mutate and grow wings and foresight and all that. So, kind of right. But at the same time, it could just be the Emperor wanting that from him.
Yeah. I've seen various sources that say that, because like the Primarchs and just Warhammer 40K in general is like inspired by different things, and I have heard the story that Sanguinius is actually supposed to be a Jesus figure, and the Emperor is God. And the more I think about it, with the wings and all that kind of stuff, and what you just said, it would make more sense if like Sanguinius was actually Lucifer. And
The
like
fallen angel.
the fallen angel, yeah. So like if he does come back and he gets resurrected, what if he gets resurrected as a greater demon of Zeech? That would be badass.
Or you could already say that the Death... I always forget their names. Death Guard? No. The guys that have the Black Rage. Those are essentially the fallen, angels.
Oh yeah. Even though, yeah. What are they called? The Black Legion? No. Why do we always forget?
Right. I used to play them. Why don't I know?
Yeah. But we'll see what happens with Sanguinius and the rumors with Sanguinius, because he's supposed to come back.
Right. He was dead. Now he's just in a near-death state, so we'll see. And then the whole question, too, with the Sanguinor. What exactly is that?
Yeah. It's actually, what is it? Cypher? I wouldn't be surprised.
Grega Johnson in 1985. What would the Tau do if the Kroot opened up a Portillos? Or a Portillos, depending on your pronunciation. Probably get some beef.
Super wet.
Dry.
No. Super wet and cheese.
It depends on the cast. Who would get the wet and cheese one? The earth cast? Water cast?
I don't know.
I feel like
That's a
the
good
fire
question.
cast would get dry with jalapenos.
Yeah, with the hot peppers. I feel like the water cast probably wouldn't. Or I don't know. Who would get the wet? I feel like the earth cast would get the wet. Yeah, and for all those that don't know, it's just an Italian beef, and they soak it in the brine. Au jus. There you go. Next question comes from Ozart. Is every Titan powered by a nuclear core? If so, can every Titan overload itself and create a nuclear explosion in the battlefield? I believe so, but I don't actually... Like, you don't want to do that.
Right. Like, there's a lot of time, effort, resources used to create these engines of destruction.
Yeah.
If you're just going to use it as like a bomb, like, just make a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. And put it on the Titan so you could just throw it out like a last-ditch effort.
Right.
Because there's a lot of stories of the Imperium fighting over the remains of a Titan. And that remain has to, like, they can't go nuclear, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, like, stories of, like, orcs taking, like, I don't know, like an infernal cannon or something like that. Yeah.
I think that's the plot to Dawn of War.
Yep. It's a good game.
Next question.
This one's by Simon Teese. Where do you think the gene seed of the Grey Knights come from? The Emperor or a 21st Primarch? Um, as far as I know, it is heavily implied that it came directly from the Emperor.
Yep.
I don't think they've 100% confirmed it, but I think that's pretty much it.
That's true. Even though with that whole explanation of the Exorcist coming from the Ultramarines, which is fucking
No,
bullshit.
not the Ultramarines.
Oh, what
the
was it?
Imperial Fists.
That's
'Cause
bullshit.
Yeah, Dorn is their gene seed progenitor.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, it should have been Grey Knights.
Yeah.
It made sense. Everything was pointing to that.
Yeah. But yeah, Emperor.
Some people say it's Malkador, but like,
He's not a Primarch.
yeah, he's just a dude.
Yeah. Next question comes from Nunos Barros. Hi guys, Sydney
Hi.
from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Hi
Ooh.
Sydney. I had a friend named Sydney in high school. He's a judge now. You don't really get to say that very often, at least where we grew up. Like, yeah, my friend's a judge now. He's not my friend no more, but because he's a judge. The Custodes were beside the Emperor since the beginning of the Unification Wars. They did not act just as the Emperor's bodyguards, but as advisors and close friends, even sharing secrets with him. Ooh. After the head of the Imperium fell on the High Lord's hands and the Emperor's personality cult started, why didn't the Custodes take over to stop the Imperium to become this mockery shadow of what the Emperor originally desired? That's a good question.
Why not? Well, the Custodes, they're not a, how do I put it? They're not a ruling force. They're essentially, I think you said it, we answered this like 2-3 weeks ago, where you said they're like the Secret Service.
Yeah.
They're there to protect the Emperor, and that's their one thing. That's like if a president was assassinated, the Secret Service, they don't become the president.
Right.
Like they're just the protectors, the hand of the president, but not the actual Emperor.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that they can't be advisors. Like, you could still advise a president if you're, like, the Secret Service, but still understand that you can't take a role as a... Like, you weren't elected or anything. There are High Lords that are above you.
Right.
Also, on top of that, the Emperor's, like, trajectory was to let humanity kind of deal with their own things. That's the whole point of the separation between the Space Marines and the Primarchs and their legions and the High Lords of Terra. That's why Horus is getting kind of mad that, like, the High Lords, which are just humans, were above or were taking bureaucratic control over what the legions were asking them to do. So if you are an advisor, and even if you are, like, in the backseat to the Emperor, and you're seeing that his trajectory is, like, letting humanity do its own thing, obviously you would let humanity do its own thing,
even if it wasn't for the benefit of humanity.
Yep.
But you see a little bit of like perversion to this with like the High Lords and their involvement with the Minotaurs chapter, because it's heavily implied that the Minotaurs are working for the High Lords, and there's like some like weird stuff going on because like the chapter master has died, but he comes back over and over again, whether it's cloning, whether it's some way of like perpetualness, or if it's just somebody else taking on the armor and the mantle of the chapter master. We don't know yet. But yeah, there's some weird stuff going on.
Yeah. And also you have to remember that whenever the Emperor has spoken to anybody, so like first it was Alicia Dominica, the leader of the Sisters of Battle, and then it was Gilliman. There's probably been like in between. But they always come back and don't really push against the Imperial Creed. So the Emperor, if he is becoming a god, then I think the Adeptus Custodes know this. And they're like, well, we just need to protect the corpse until the god comes. That's just like a theory, maybe.
But it sure seems that way.
Yeah.
Malix plays. Should orcs on the table have an ability that lets them release spores upon death, and maybe on a 6, a new orc is deployed on the next turn to replace the dead one? Because they are meant to be nearly impossible to be completely eradicated.
No, I don't want GW to do that just because I feel like they're going to raise the price of a regular orc boy. I don't want that.
And that's very close to like Necron's resurrection.
Or the death guard with their rolling of 6s.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you could implement from the lore onto the tabletop that, I mean, would make sense, but spores don't, like, as soon as an orc dies, it's not like 20 orcs pop out.
Right.
It takes time for that spore to mature, I guess you could call it that.
Yep.
So because of that, I don't think that would be a logical thing. Or you could just say, like, depending on the planet you're on, there's Pharaoh orcs and they come as reserves or whatever. But just know that you have to pay for those reserves.
That's what commandos are.
Mm-hmm.
This next question comes from All Might. If all the races opened up a food joint, where y'all eating at first?
I was going to say the Tao, because they'd be, like, technologically advanced, and they'd give you, like, a little square of, like, tofu, and it gives you all the right nutrients. But that's not fun.
No, yeah, not fun at all.
Not fun.
When I thought of the Tao, I thought like the rotary sushi places where like you sit down and I mean you don't have these now because of COVID, but like there'd be like a little conveyor belt. And yeah, I see sushi. I just recently got into poke.
Oh,
that stuff is good. I never thought that because it's basically a Chipotle bowl, but with raw fish.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's really good. So a poke place for the Tao for me.
Nice. I'd go with some like Dark Eldar stuff just to see what they're cooking up in those like shady places.
Isn't there a goth IHOP? Do you think that's what the Dark Eldar would
there
be?
It
just
is.
A goth
a
IHOP?
goth IHOP. Yep. I don't know why that just like I saw that somewhere and it was just like blocked in my psyche and you just unlock the key to it.
Yeah. I would definitely eat at a goth IHOP, especially controlled by the Dark Elder, because there's a chance that you might die and become a piece of furniture, which turns me on a little bit.
Sit on me. This one's by Bunny Hop. How is it that Be'lakor and Abaddon the Despoiler are so powerful, yet none of the Chaos Gods have tried to sway them to their cause? Yes and no. They are really strong in their own right. Be'lakor, because he actually tricked them, ages ago, for all of them to give him their power. Abaddon is the opposite. He does not want to use Chaos's power to basically show, everybody that, you don't need to be a follower of like this god to accomplish all these things. Yep. And that's kind of in the footsteps of like his Primarch, Horus, where you saw Horus being used as a pawn for the Chaos Gods. And he's like, well, I'm going to be better than Horus without using them.
And that's why I think because that concept of both Be'lakor and Abaddon kind of fits in with the renegade god Malao, which we know that the reason that Malao was taken out is I think there was like copyright issues.
Yeah.
But in a plot perspective, it would make better sense to just have individuals have that rebellious mindset of not only rebelling against the Emperor but also rebelling against chaos, and still like trying to con them into giving them their powers.
Right. And it's like, because I was thinking about this too, it's like, well, as strong as they are, imagine if they did ally to a certain god. Like, wouldn't that just multiply their power even further? It's like, you would think so, but now you're in servitude, in debt to this god.
Right. And they'll probably just try to take you out just because it's like to prove a point. I'm like, nobody should ever try to do what Be'lakor or Abaddon is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's also the guy from the Bad Abor. What's his name? The pirate?
Luft Huron.
Yeah. He also is Chaos Undivided. And he's not as strong as these guys, but I mean, he still is pretty powerful.
That's true.
So, I mean, you can accomplish a lot by not allying to the gods.
But it's not fun.
Right.
Because you want tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
This next question comes from Jimbo. At 15 minutes and 20 seconds, you said, beer tastes like piss. My question is, how do you know what piss tastes like? So, I should correct that. So, beer tastes like what piss smells like. Because we've all been in that situation where you've been playing basketball all day or out and about playing soccer, whatever it is that you play as a kid.
Cricket,
there you go. And you come in and you get in the shower and you pee in the shower, and obviously you have hot water on because hot water showers is the only way to go when you're a kid. And then the smell just comes into your nose, and then that is what beer tastes like. Like kind of acidic and like gross, and like you don't want to taste it again. But obviously you're smelling it. Like you don't want to smell it again, but you have to because you're in the shower. You have a part 2. He says, I like beer taste. Should I take the next step? Yeah, do it.
Definitely,
Yeah. Drink your own piss.
I
Just
mean,
aim up and go, ah.
Bear Grylls does it.
Yeah. That's dangerous.
Yeah, I heard it's actually like worse for you than like not
Dirty water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worse than like actually drinking salt water if you're like in the sea, because like the salt's just gonna dehydrate you even further.
Oh, that's true, yeah. But how would you do that? Like, let's say you're out in, like, the sea. Would you just, like, levitate or push your body up and then pee up so that you can drink?
Mm-hmm. You would
That's
have
gross.
to just let gravity do all the work.
But then wouldn't that attract sharks?
Oh, that's true. Because if the sharks see you try to piss in your mouth, they're like, nah, I need to get to that before you pee on yourself.
They're really kinky. Sharks are kinky.
Mm-hmm. That's why you got to try and catch a fish and drink the fish's blood, because that'll rehydrate you and make you into a blood angel.
Right. Red thirst all
Mhm.
day. But then you have to worry about the sharks again.
That's true.
That's why the sharks have existed since
Mhm.
forever.
That's why it's so hard to take out a Carcharodon player.
Yeah. Because they come from the bottom and get you up. They're
Mhm.
power bottoms.
Yeah. It's funny. The other day, I was looking at my friend's phone, and he's got like all the. He said he's been on YouTube for like 10 years. And I'm like, dude, you're not subbed to anybody. He's like, why would I sub to people when I just want to be a Dom? Like, I guess you got a point. You ain't subbing to no one.
Yeah, that's a good pun.
Thank you.
And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us about anything in life, just let us know in the comments section below. We really appreciate you guys watching.
Mhm.
And if you stayed to the end, kudos to you.
Right.
What does kudos mean?
Like, big ups.
That makes sense. This was Gershwin.
The Sound Alchemist, and we are out.
Oh, I guess that's my